You dare not mention that at this time. Josh's grip tightened around his coffee mug, his knuckles turning white as he snapped at me over breakfast. His sharp tone sent a chill through me. I just think we should wait a few more years before trying to have a baby, I murmured, my voice barely audible. Staring at my untouched plate, I fought back the sting of tears. His words felt like a slap knocking the air from my lungs. Had I been fooling myself this whole time? I'm Julie, 33 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, where I work as an elementary school teacher. For the past 2 years, I believed I was battling infertility, agonizing over every negative test, every failed attempt. But now, I know the truth. It was all a lie. I had seen every fertility specialist in the city, adjusted my diet, cut out caffeine, and meticulously tracked my cycle, convinced that if I just tried hard enough, I could fix the problem. But every single month, the test came back negative, and with each failure, my self-worth crumbled a little more. Was I too stressed? Was my body betraying me? Was something fundamentally wrong with me? Each time I broke down, Josh would gently stroke my hair, whispering reassurances, telling me it would happen when the time was right. And I believed him. I trusted him. I never once questioned if he was hiding something from me. We had previously argued over kids, but Josh's response seemed different that morning. Recently, he had become more defensive, and I didn't know why. I chose to clean up the mess in our attic that afternoon while he was at work since I was still unhappy over our argument. In order to control my anxiousness, the doctor had advised me to keep occupied. And I was in dire need of the diversion. I discovered a manila folder labeled 2022 tax documents crammed inside a dusty storage container while searching through old boxes. I nearly put it down, but then I saw Josh's name. My hands began to shake as I took out the document. The letterhead, dated March 15th, 2022, exactly 8 months before our wedding, came from Austin Medical Center. This letter attests to the successful completion of your vasectomy treatment. 2 years of pain, guilt, and self-blame turned into something else, and the paper crumpled in my trembling hands. Josh was aware. He had knew it was impossible during every doctor's visit, every test that came back negative, and every night when he cried. He had kept his secret while he watched me physically and emotionally destroy myself. I had never experienced wrath like the one that filled me. It was cold-blooded rage, not just anger. I replaced the paper just where I had found it after gently smoothing it out. After that, I walked downstairs, brewed a cup of tea, and began to strategize. Josh had no idea what was going to happen, but he was going to find out just how much his deceit would cost him. My thoughts were racing as I sat at our kitchen table and stared into my tea. My husband was changing from the person I thought I knew to someone I didn't recognize. He had seen me sob myself to sleep how many times? How many times had he held my hand during yet another unsatisfactory visit to the doctor, knowing full well that he was the cause of our infertility? It buzzed on my phone. Josh texted, "How about this morning? I apologize for my outburst. When I go home, let's speak." I adore you. As I read his message, my hands began to shake. He was continuing the act even now. We'd spent a lot of money on reproductive treatments, I thought. Therapies he was aware would never be effective. The experts, the supplements, the never-ending tests. To cope with what I believed to be my infertility, I had even begun going to a therapist. I discovered a picture from 6 months ago while looking through the camera roll on my phone. Josh and I during the baby shower for my sister Rachel. Josh had reassured me, "Our time will come, honey," when I recalled sobbing in the restroom that day. All we have to do is wait. It made me physically ill to think of it. I launched my banking app and began to do some math. In the last 2 years, we had spent more than $15,000 on specialists, reproductive procedures, and medical expenses. Money that could have been used for travel, a down payment on a home, or just about anything else. It had been squandered on a lie instead. However, it would be a mistake to confront him right now. Josh was shrewd. For years, he had tricked me into thinking I was the issue. He would figure out a way to turn this around if I extended my hand too soon, perhaps even cause me to question what I had discovered. No, I had to be more intelligent than that. I required a strategy. I took out my laptop and began looking up divorce attorneys. Then I thought of my roommate from college, Sarah, who was now a financial counselor. Last year, she had assisted a friend who was going through a difficult divorce. Tomorrow I called her. There was more to Josh's treachery than the lies and the vasectomy. It was about the years that they played the part of the encouraging husband while seeing me struggle and allowing me to place the responsibility on myself. He had betrayed my confidence, my money, and my time. Above all, though, he had stolen my decision over my own destiny. Well, I was reversing that decision now. Around 6, I heard Josh's vehicle pull into the driveway. I inhaled deeply and practiced my poise one final time. I had already made sure that everything in the attic was exactly how it had been and had stored away any evidence of my afternoon discovery. Though the idea of cooking for him now made my stomach turn, the house smelled like the cannelloni I'd made, which is his favorite dish. As he entered with his briefcase in hand, he exclaimed, "Something smells amazing!" He approached me from behind and attempted to plant a kiss on my cheek, but I moved aside, feigning a need for something from the cupboard. "About this morning," he began in a soft voice, "I am aware of your frustration. Perhaps we should investigate more natural methods of conception. I've read about this holistic physician." I nearly chuckled at the ridiculousness. Here he was, recommending yet another ineffective treatment, fully aware of the reasons why it would fail. I feigned a smile instead. "Perhaps you're right about waiting," I responded, closely observing his response. "Maybe we should stop trying." I saw the faint flicker of relief that crossed his features. Reaching for my hand, he continued, "I think that would be good for us. You've been under a lot of stress recently." Agitated. Yes, because it was that. Rather than his covert vasectomy, that was the issue. I let him take the lead during dinner, nodding occasionally as he discussed his day at the real estate agency. While he was at work, I had called Sarah, and it was all I could think about. She suggested that I begin compiling financial records and provided me with the name of a top-notch divorce lawyer. As I carefully pushed my food around my plate, I said I was thinking, perhaps I ought to hunt for a teaching job that pays more. For when we do start a family, you know. Josh gave a reassuring smile. "Honey, that's a really good idea. You're an amazing educator. You would be an asset to any school." My fury boiled at the ease with which he played along. Sarah had suggested I'd have to start recording his falsehoods too. "Divorce proceedings could benefit from everything," I added. "I might visit the bank tomorrow, check out our choices for discounts." "I can take care of the money," he answered hastily. "Too soon. That is not a concern for you." I had to be concerned, though, because Josh had been transferring funds between accounts for months, according to Sarah. Little sums, nothing really noticeable, but it mounted up. Had he been waiting for me to find out his secret, or was this just one more way he was lying? Something hardened inside of me as I watched him eat his cannelloni while talking about his weekend plans. He believed he was in charge of everything. He believed he could control me indefinitely. He was unaware of what was about to happen. I called in sick for work the following morning. I drove to see Patricia Walker, the divorce lawyer Sarah had suggested, as soon as Josh left for work. Her office was located in a sleek high-rise in downtown Austin, and the entrance alone made me feel underdressed. Patricia motioned for me to sit while her friend Sarah gave me the rundown. She had keen eyes and an even sharper blazer, and she might have been in her 60s. "But you have to tell me everything." I took a picture of the manila folder in the attic and took it out. Patricia took thorough notes as I described the previous 2 years, the fertility procedures, the fraud, and the financial anomalies Sarah had observed. When I brought up the dates, I noticed her jaw tighten, but otherwise her demeanor stayed neutral. She said that he underwent a vasectomy prior to your wedding but never revealed it. I fought back tears as I nodded, knowing he watched me endure all those treatments. Patricia cut in, her tone stern. "That's more than just deception. He let you spend a lot of money on treatments that he knew wouldn't work." "The case for financial fraud is compelling." Taking up a legal pad, she began writing. "We must first protect your finances. Create a new account with a bank he has never used before. Begin transferring little sums of money. Nothing that will cause concern." "What about the documentation for the vasectomy?" I inquired. "Shall I accept it?" Patricia gave a head shake. "Nothing should be taken out of the house just yet. We will directly subpoena such medical center records. More importantly, we must record any new falsehoods. Texas is advantageous to us because it is a one-party consent state for recordings." I was taking notes with trembling hands. It all seemed unreal, as if I were organizing a military operation rather than ending my marriage. Patricia said, her face softening a little. "One more thing. Do not yet face him. Your husband and other men are skilled manipulators. He will start hiding if he finds out you know." I walked out of Patricia's office feeling oddly at ease and with a thorough action plan. I went to the bank first, where I applied for a credit card in my own name and started a new account. I went to my doctor's office after that to obtain copies of all my reproductive treatment documents, which served as evidence of the thousands of dollars we had spent on operations Josh knew were unnecessary. Josh texted me as soon as I got home. I heard you were ill. Do you want me to stop by for some soup on my way home? As I read his message, I reflected on all the times he had acted like the protective husband and the morning sickness treatments he had purchased for me when I was worried I could be expecting. After unsatisfactory doctor's appointments, the foot hurts, the shoulder to weep on when each test resulted in a failure. I replied to the SMS with a heart emoji just for good measure. That would be lovely. This imaginary game could be played by two people. I photographed everything that might be significant as I combed through our files for the remainder of the afternoon. Investment accounts, tax returns, and bank statements. A drawer containing real estate documentation for properties I had never heard of was discovered. Other than keeping his vasectomy secret, Josh had been very busy. I replaced each file gently, whispering to myself to wait. Simply wait. The week after that was a self-stroll exercise. As if nothing had changed, I would bid Josh farewell with a kiss every morning. I would listen to his stories about his job every night, smiling and nodding as I surreptitiously recorded everything. My phone's speech recording app became my daily buddy. Sarah looked into our finances and found more than simply Josh's small financial transactions. The year before our wedding, 2 investment properties that I was unaware of were acquired. I didn't have access to the account that provided the down payment. Patricia filed for more financial discovery as soon as I told her about it. During our follow-up discussion, she mentioned that your husband had been preparing this for some time. There is a pattern of intentional dishonesty in these attributes, the vasectomy and the different accounts. The biggest surprise, though, was when my fertility specialist, Dr. Martinez, called. There was an issue with my request for her office to forward my whole medical history. Mrs. Anderson, she added cautiously, I noticed something unusual while reviewing your file. Your husband repeatedly called our office to ask that some treatments be postponed. He said that you required additional time because you were experiencing anxiety related to the treatments. My hand gripped the phone more tightly. What is he? He expressly requested that your hormone therapy appointments be rescheduled, stating that you were not emotionally prepared. She hesitated. I thought you should be aware of what we now know. I thanked her, hung up, and threw up. Just as I was about to enter the bathroom, Josh had actively obstructed my treatment rather than merely watching me suffer. He was responsible for all of the rescheduled appointments that I had attributed to the clinic's hectic schedule. Josh brought food from my favorite Thai restaurant home that evening. As he prepared dinner, he remarked, I thought you could use a treat. Lately, you've seemed a little depressed. Thinking of Dr. Martinez's epiphany, I made myself smile. As I saw him serve the dinner, I said, just tired from work. Actually, I've been considering taking a vacation from teaching and possibly exploring other options. He jerked his head up. What opportunities? Something else? I'm not sure yet. I shrugged, observing the tension in his shoulders. Real estate, perhaps? It always sounds so fascinating to you, he answered swiftly. That teaching is your passion and that stability is crucial for when we have a family. My fury boiled when he stated, when we start our family, in such a casual manner. However, I spoke in a light tone. It was only a thought, and you're probably right. I sneaked out of bed to check Josh's phone after he had fallen asleep. I needed to know. Even though Patricia had cautioned me against doing anything that would jeopardize our case, I saw several discussions with a number I didn't recognize in his recent calls. After noting it down, I carefully put his phone back in place. Sarah checked the number with her contacts as a financial investigator the following day. It belongs to a Houston divorce lawyer. Josh was preparing his own escape strategy because he had called them 6 times in the previous month. Okay, 2 could be ready for battle. The next insight came from a surprising place. Maria, the barista who had worked there during my infertility issues, drew me aside as I was getting coffee at our regular location. She looked around anxiously and added, I've been wanting to tell you something. Sometimes your husband brings a girlfriend with him. I assumed it might have anything to do with employment, but my heart thumped. However, what? I heard them discussing divorce attorneys and real estate ventures last week. Make sure you don't find out about certain accounts before everything is in place, she said. Maria put her hand on my arm. Seeing how much you've been through, even though I know it's not my place, after thanking her, I sat in my car with my hands on the steering wheel. Sarah had brought up the name of Rebecca Wilson, a colleague real estate agent at Josh's firm, who had been listed on some of the property documents. Everything made obvious now. Patricia and I had another meeting that afternoon. I showed her the notes I had collected and added, we need to move faster. He and his co-worker had something planned. Patricia looked over the facts and nodded. In fact, this is to our advantage. Enough proof of financial malfeasance has been gathered for us to request emergency orders. The accounts he has been concealing can be frozen. What about the evidence for a vasectomy? The date of the surgery was confirmed by the medical center. You found out 8 months prior to your wedding. She bent over. We have him on several levels, Julie. Marital dishonesty, financial fraud, and medical manipulation. The question is, what is your preferred course of action? I inhaled deeply. He should feel as powerless as I felt. I want him to know how it feels to have everything taken away from him. Then let's carefully plan this. It's the element of surprise that matters. Josh was working late that night once more, most likely with Rebecca. I made use of the time to finish my escape strategy. I had already paid cash to a friend of Sarah's to get a small apartment. I had records of every lie he had said over the previous 2 years, as well as copies of all the crucial documents. Josh paid close attention the following morning as he prepared breakfast and inquired about my plans for the day. Actually, I was considering researching those natural fertility therapies you mentioned, I responded, trying to sound as innocent as possible. Would it be possible for you to accompany me to the consultation? His face flashed with a terror that was almost ridiculous. Oh, honey, this new development project has me quite busy at work right now. As I watched him stop, I asked nonchalantly, the one with Rebecca Wilson? You've been working on that for a long time. Carefully, he stated, it's a complicated deal, many moving components. There probably were. I listened to his steady breathing as I lay awake next to him that night. All the components would be in place by tomorrow. Patricia had the court documents prepared. Every suspicious transaction and hidden account had been recorded by Sarah. Dr. Martinez had even given a thorough statement regarding Josh's meddling in my medical care. He will soon know what it was like to have your entire universe revealed to be a lie. I decided to have the encounter on a Sunday morning. Josh had no idea that his well-planned life was about to fall apart as he sat at our kitchen table sipping coffee and looking at his phone. I put the paperwork for the vasectomy on the table and added, "Hey, I found something interesting in the attic. Do you want to explain?" He lost the color in his face. With shaking hands, he groped for the document while his coffee cup clattered against the saucer. "I can explain, Julie." "Describe what?" "How come 8 months before to our wedding, you underwent a vasectomy? Or how you saw me spend 2 years blaming myself even though I knew I couldn't conceive physically?" He got to his feet, disbelief giving way to desperation. "I intended to inform you." "When?" I interrupted him. "How many more fertility procedures will it take? How many more times do you have to watch me sob myself to sleep?" Despite the anger that was flowing through me, I spoke steadily. "Or did you hold off until you and Rebecca had decided on an exit plan?" Rebecca's name caused his head to snap up. "Josh, how did you? I know everything. The calls to the Houston divorce lawyer, the secret accounts, the hidden properties. I was constructing a case while you were playing your games." "A case?" His voice broke. "Examine your email. From now on, the contact can be handled by our lawyers." I started to walk away but stopped. "And those accounts you have been concealing, they're frozen. I wish you luck when you explain those to the judge." I started toward the door, and Josh scurried after me. His poise was utterly destroyed. "I can't be subjected to this. I own those accounts and those properties. In fact, I looked at them. These are assets that you unlawfully hid as marital property under Texas marriage rules. Patricia believes that, in addition to the proof of your medical fraud, the judge will be quite interested in that." Anger twisted at his face. "You looked through my personal health records?" I nearly chuckled at how hypocritical the accusation was. "Like how you and Rebecca have been preparing your own divorce plan, or how you called Dr. Martinez's office to postpone my fertility treatments." He began. "That's different," but I interrupted him. "You're correct. It's not the same, because I was collecting proof while you were undermining my confidence and observing my suffering. Every falsehood, every covert story, every deceptive practice." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. His phone vibrated violently on the table, the hum slicing through the tense silence. I watched as his expression shifted, confusion morphing into dread. His fingers trembled as he picked up the device, eyes scanning the screen. Legal notices. His accounts were blocked. His carefully woven web of lies was unraveling before him. His face turned ghostly pale. He looked at me, searching for some sign of mercy. I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. "I trusted you. I cherished you." I let the weight of my words settle before continuing, my tone laced with quiet devastation. "And even though you knew the truth all along, you let me believe something was wrong with me. Julie, please, he choked out, desperation creeping into his voice. We can fix this. I'll tell you everything. I didn't flinch. Instead, I stepped behind the door and grabbed my already packed luggage, the final piece of my escape. I turned back, my gaze cold and unyielding. You can tell the judge about it, I said, my voice steady. I'm sure they'd love to hear how you sat back and watched your wife suffer through fertility treatments for 2 years after secretly getting a vasectomy. His legs gave out and he collapsed into a chair. I watched as his world crumbled around him, just as mine had in that attic. Want to hear more gripping stories like this? Subscribe to the SoraBook channel and stay tuned for the next video.